Hello and welcome to the Away End. I'm John Green.
And I'm Daniel Alarcón. How's it going, John?
It's going great. I'm really excited for this podcast. So we're going to be talking about football on this podcast, but I think one thing we need to establish right at the outset, Daniel, is that you and I have been friends for 30 years.
It feels like just went by like that.
I thought you were going to say it feels like much longer.
We've been at this talking, sharing ideas, sharing thoughts, sharing observations about soccer in life since approximately 1990. Is that right?
1992, I would say, but it was in the early 90s when we still had to smuggle in VHS tapes to watch football games. That was the only way to do it, was to go to the TV room at our little boarding school and watch live from 14 years ago videotapes of World Cup games past.
I remember that. I remember my soccer coach, Coach Bartlett or Barrett, gave out after practice one day when I was around 10 or 12. He had a duffel bag of VHS tapes of European games, and he made us watch them as homework so we would all stop following the ball around wherever it went, which is how, which was the height of American soccer tactics in the 1980s Deep South. So.
To be fair, that is still an important part of youth soccer. I never really got past the follow the ball around. My coach would always try to point out to me that the hypotenuse of the triangle is actually better than if you run sideways and then down when you're defending. And I never quite got that. I never quite was able to follow along with that. I was just drawn like a magnet toward the ball.
There's still time, John. So we are kicking off our brand new show, The Away End, as you mentioned. And I'm wondering if you could tell us a little bit about what you have in mind for this show.
Well, I want it to be a show that helps people understand the World Cup and football in general and why people are so passionate about it. Why, as the old saying goes, of all the unimportant things, football is the most important. But I also want to use it as an excuse to talk to you, someone who's probably the smartest person I've ever known, excepting, of course, our producer, Sean Titone, who's also been a friend of ours since high school. Talk with two of the smartest people I've ever known about this game that we all love so much.
Does Sean love this game?
That's a really good point, Daniel. In fact, Sean, can you come on just for a minute here? I know that you don't like being in front of the camera, but hello, Sean.
Hello, John. Hello, Daniel.
How are you, man? You just want to quickly explain the offside rule? Just
tell us how offsides works.
Offsides is when the striker or the person on offense gets ahead of the defenders and, doesn't have another person on his team there. Or wait, he can't cross there's a line that he cannot cross. And if he crosses that line, then that's going to be an offside.
Yeah, you've certainly nailed the hockey offsides rule.
If the ball crosses three lines. Sean, that was super close to almost being mildly correct.
In the first half of your comment, I was so impressed.
It really petered out halfway through. And just a terrible downward spiral after that.
Well, we appreciate you being here, even though football isn't your first or greatest love. By the end of this podcast, our aim will be to get you there.
Episode 2, I'm going to give you guys the best description of offsides that you've ever heard.
I think it could be a recurring segment.
I think it needs to be a recurring segment. As Sean is forced to watch some soccer games, does he ever click with offsides?
Or just any of the arcane rules, or maybe we can use anyway, we can figure this stuff out later. But
this is going to be a great bit.
It's really gold already, podcasting gold. Can I build off of your description of the show, John?
Yeah, please.
Okay. So for me, the away end is all the things that you mentioned. The World Cup is one of those events that I've used to sort of mark time in my life, because it's 4 years is, how long high school is or how long college is, how long a relationship might be, how long you lived in a place and then moved. And each World Cup has sort of been a marker for me. And I think that there's no better way to sort of commemorate this particular marker now that I'm in like late middle age, I suppose, or middle age, whatever this is, to sort of look back at the history of the game, the history of my relationship with the game, and no one better to do it with than you. A close friend who also shares the same passion. So that idea that, like, I was just looking back through some photos, and I have a photo from the big party that we threw, or that I was at with friends in Oakland in 2010, and I have two photos. One taken moments before the Iniesta scores the winning goal in the World Cup final, and one taken moments after. And I'm sitting next to my wife, Carolina, who was my girlfriend at the time, and a bunch of friends, many of whom I haven't seen in, years since I left the Bay Area. But people that I still am in touch with in some cases, people that I really care about. And I just think back to all those places that I've been and shared these really special communal moments that have been built around soccer and built around specifically the World Cup.
So for me, that exact same day, I was at the first ever VidCon, this conference my brother organized around online video. And I was in a big room of probably 500 people watching the World Cup final together, perhaps a third of whom were Spanish or for Spain, a third of whom were Dutch or for the Netherlands, and a third of whom were neutrals. And again, it's that feeling that you just described of a number of people who I haven't seen in a long time, but whose love for me and my love for them still kind of holds me together and still carries me through. And I feel the same way about the World Cup. I can tell you where I was in each final, but I can also tell you about specific memories I have of 2002 when I was really lonely after a big breakup and I was living alone in a furnished apartment that my parents had helped set me up with because I was so low functioning. And I remember waking up at 2 a.m. to watch the games and feeling so comforted and so unalone in those moments. I remember, 2018, I was stuck in the Ozarks. Have you ever been to the Ozarks?
I haven't yet.
Yeah, it's a part of America that you would never visit. But I was stuck there, and I was watching. I watched all the games with my kids crawling all over me, and I remember the first time, my kids were old enough to really enjoy the World Cup. It's just, for me, it's the same thing. It is the marker of my life. It is the way that I count time.
Yeah, absolutely. I wanted to say a little bit about the name, the away end, and I think I have an explanation that one has to do with the shirt that I'm wearing, and I don't know if you can see this, but I'm wearing the Peruvian national team shirt. Because Peru's not in the World Cup, I will always be with the away fans, basically. But I mean, also I just like there's something that I really admire about away fans. The dedication that they have. As the United States, Mexico, and Canada are going to be hosting, the fans of 48 nations and hangers on from dozens of other countries and hundreds of other places. In some ways, the World Cup is always about the away fan. It's
Right.
about those people who travel from, across an ocean around the world to support their team. It's about the immigrants in the United States who are going to be supporting the teams from the countries they hail from. And I know, for a fact how important that is for many people to be able to connect with their countries of origin. I lived in New York for a long time. I mean, I theoretically still live in New York, even though I'm not there right now. And we used to go to watch the New York Red Bulls, who are a totally mediocre, average team of barely competent players.
Even that is generous.
And I loved going to the games. Super fun, in part because I could always sort of squint and think, if I'd only worked a little harder, I could probably handle this level of sport. I wouldn't be out of place on this team. But what I'm getting at is that the stadium's beautiful. It's a short train ride right outside of the city in Harrison, New Jersey, and never full ever for a New York Red Bulls game. But the one time I saw it full was at a warm-up game for the Peruvian national team, who were playing, I believe, Denmark, but it could have been some other Scandinavian country. 28,000 Peruvians were there, and there was like one away fan. They showed them on the screen. But what I remember that I loved about it was that I got off the train in Harrison, and it was like being in Lima. It was like being in Peru. To the point that when I was with my son and I bought him a Peruvian jersey so that he could wear, the guy gave me the price in Peruvian money. I was like, how much is it? And he's like, 20 soles, like 20 soles, you know? And I knew he meant dollars, but he was just, we were just so surrounded and in the place, you know, that he was just like immediately like, you know, let me do the currency converter for you so that we're all on the same page. And what I'm getting to is really this idea of the World Cup too, that is very much about bringing people together from all over the world. And in a sense, we all get to be the away end always because we get to bring that passion to it and admire the people who actually did travel thousands of miles to support their team.
Yeah, there's nothing I love more than going to an away game. I took my daughter to an AFC Wimbledon away game, the third tier English soccer team I sponsor and support. And at the end of the game, I said, Alice, did you enjoy it? And she said, it was a lot of drunk adults. And I think that is my part of what I love about it is that it is a lot of drunk adults. There's so much passion in the away end. There's so much, you know, even though the home fans always outnumber the away fans often sing louder. And that's part of what I find so magical about football.
Can I tell you the story of my first World Cup game that I saw live?
You tell me the story of your first World Cup game, and then I'll tell you the story of your first World Cup game that you saw live.
Because there's a bit of a discrepancy and controversy here. But it was 1994. I flew out.
It was on that we agree.
On that we agree. Yes. I was in LA. I flew to LA with my dad because we had an uncle who lived in LA, and we went to the games at the Rose Bowl, I believe. And the opening game at the Rose Bowl was USA Colombia. Colombia, incidentally, where I'm currently living. And USA, of course.
Oh, and we should mention that you're Peruvian for the context of understanding all of the lovely things that you said about being with other Peruvians.
I think that was clear with the jersey I'm wearing, but yes, I'm Peruvian. I was born in Lima. I was raised in Alabama, where John did his high school, and that's where we met. But yeah, I'm Peruvian, and my household was always this kind of like little Peruvian bubble in the middle of Alabama. Now, I went to see this game with my uncle and my dad, and two things I remember about the game. First of all, that it was packed. It was mostly Latino, and it was the first game at the Rose Bowl, so the governor, Pete Wilson of California, came out to inaugurate the games. And it was at the time when they were proposing this very racist anti-immigrant law called Prop 187. And when the game, you know, when they announced him, they're like, you know, Governor Pete Wilson, everyone, he got to say one word. He was like, you know, welcome. And then he was booed and whistled for the entirety of his speech. Like, I mean, and in the section that I was in, which was all Latino, I could not hear a word that he said. The whole stadium was like, really intense. And I remember asking my uncle who this guy was, because we didn't live in California, I didn't know anything about him. And he was like, oh, he was this, and this. Okay, so that was one memory. And the second memory, of course, is what actually happened at this famous game, which was that the United States beat Colombia.
Right.
Colombia was one of the favored teams to win. There was the famous own goal by Andres Escobar.
Andres Escobar was later killed.
Was later killed, yes. And there's a wonderful documentary about this that I recommend called The Two Escobars, which I really think captures the kind of pathos and the drama of that moment. But something really interesting happened to me, and I think that this is what I wanted to share, which is that I began the game, as always, rooting for the Latin American team. And I found myself in the middle of the game, like everyone around me, because there weren't many Colombians, it was mostly Mexicans, Mexican Americans, rooting for the U.S. because it was an upset. And I wanted to talk about that because I know that you, being a normal human being, often root for the underdog. If all things being neutral, you root for the underdog like a regular person.
Right.
But there was a contradiction of the United States is not usually the underdog in anything. But in this particular moment, it felt very like it came out of my gut, this kind of patriotism, and I found myself doing the kind of like USA USA chant, which was totally had never happened to me. And I think that's the other thing that's interesting about the World Cup is like the conflicting loyalties, the kind of like the strange connections you sometimes build with countries that may or may not be your own. And I was wondering if that had ever happened to you.
Yeah. So the first World Cup game you actually ever attended was in Orlando, Florida. This is a fascinating thing to me because I have such a specific memory, and yet you are making a very compelling case that my memory is wrong. So here's my memory of the first World Cup game I ever attended, which I also remember as the first World Cup game you ever attended. It was in Orlando, Florida, my hometown, and I was with my dad. My dad and I have shared many wonderful football memories over the years, even though he's not a huge football fan. He's just a very supportive father. And we went to see the Netherlands play Morocco, and Dennis Bergkamp scored a goal, I remember. But what amazed me was not so much the action on the pitch, but what happened in the stands, especially with the Dutch fans. And ever since then, I've had a soft spot for the Dutch national team because I watched them win this game against Morocco, and all the orange hair and the orange shirts and the chanting and singing in Dutch and people being arm in arm. I'd never seen anything like that before in real life. I'd never seen people swaying back and forth together, singing a song together. The feeling of what is wonderful to me about football is people's love pouring onto the pitch. It's not actually what happens on the pitch. It's that shared sense of enthusiasm and trepidation and hope pouring down on these 22 players that makes it so special for me. And that was the first time I felt that in real life. But the kicker to this story is that I'm almost sure you were there, and you're almost sure you weren't there.
So you, me, and your father were there?
And I thought, Sean.
Memory is a crazy thing because I'm pretty sure I've never met your dad. And I think that we could easily get your dad on.
Yeah, that's not a bad idea. Have my dad as a guest. Have my dad as a guest.
And it's have him adjudicate this, whose memory is more false. Let me ask you a question. How old were you when you just discovered to your great surprise that there's no orange on the Dutch flag?
Oh, I was probably in my 30s when I discovered there's no orange in the Dutch flag. It's a shocker.
It's a shocker.
It's a real disappointment, and I think an opportunity for growth in the Netherlands. I think they could. There's nothing special about that flag that couldn't be redesigned.
Yeah, no, I'm sure you're going to get lots of new Dutch fans with that kind
by claiming they should change up their flag.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, we'll be talking about the Netherlands national team some, I'm sure, on this podcast, but I do think they have a reasonable chance this year to go pretty far in the tournament, whereas I do not think the U.S. men's national team does. So I will probably end up rooting for the Netherlands.
We'll do later on in the season sort of our hierarchy of affiliations and loyalties.
Great.
Because I definitely have thought a great deal about this.
Yeah, I'm happy to rank them 1 to 48. Like, I'm sure for you, number one will be, well, that's interesting. What will number one be for you? But for me, it's got to be the U.S. men's national team, even though it's a love-hate relationship. Like my wife is always like, why do you watch these people play? You hate it.
Yeah.
I have a lot of built-up anger and disappointment at the U.S. team from over the years.
Well, so I grew up watching the Peruvian team, and the thing about being a fan of Peru that I've noticed with my cousins and my dad and my uncles, when we watch the game, usually many fans, after the striker misses the open goal sitter, everyone curses at the striker. In Peru, I noticed this with my dad, that he started cursing the striker before he missed. You know?
Yeah, there's a little bit of that. There's a little bit of that. Like, I know this is going to disappoint me. I'm just not sure how yet.
Yeah. Look, I think for sure my number one affiliation this time will be Colombia. My wife is Colombian. I'm living in Bogota currently. Just for my own safety, I think probably it's the best thing.
Sure.
Within my family.
Got to do what's good for the marriage.
Yeah, no, for sure. But also, this is a player I'm sure you have a soft spot for. Luis Diaz is an absolute monster of a player and a very likable hardworking, tenacious, works for the team kind of player, who you have the feeling can always sort of, that terrible phrase, grab the game by the scruff of his neck and just make things happen. And I have a great admiration for players like that. I really like players who are super, super technically skilled, but still work hard on defense and track back and do all this kind of dirty work that a player like Luis Diaz does. He also does not seem to have any chill whatsoever.
No, we miss him at Liverpool a lot.
Yeah, you. Yeah,
he's one of those players who's underappreciated by fans a lot of times because he does so much work off the ball.
Yeah, no, I love him, and he's an absolute hero here. So let me tell you something. When we moved here to Bogota, we had this funny moment where my youngest son is slightly indifferent to soccer. He loves the World Cup. He loves like the spectacle of this kind of tournament. But between World Cups, he's pretty much indifferent to soccer. But he's going to school in Bogota, and he's in 7th grade. And so one night there was a game, a morning, before school after a World Cup qualifier, and he was panicking because we'd missed the game because we'd forgotten about it or whatever. And he was like, "Papi, we have to watch the goals. I have to watch the goals before the bus comes to go to school because I can't go to school without having seen these goals because everyone's gonna be talking about it. And I'm gonna look like an idiot, And so we were literally like, we watched the goals and we like named the players, like who was involved. So he's like, the social anxiety of being ignorant of soccer, And there's little billboards around town and we go around Bogota and I'm like, quick, who's that? And he's like, James. I'm like, okay, good. Who's that?
He's making progress. Whereas in the US, you can absolutely get away with only knowing Christian Pulisic. I feel like in Colombia, you have to know the players selected for the national team top to bottom.
Yeah. I mean, it's helped me in many a taxi cab conversation around town for sure.
Daniel, before we break down the 2026 World Cup draw, which I'm excited to do with you, I just want to ask you if you have one football moment that you can share with us that stands out as the greatest game you've ever seen or the greatest game you've ever watched or the greatest game you've ever been a part of one way or another.
So the current jersey that I'm wearing right now, I bought in November of 2017 in Lima.
Yeah.
I was there for the game we played against New Zealand.
Which was to qualify for the World Cup finals. Can I tell you, I texted you that day. I had really bad a disease called labyrinthitis, and so I could not open my eyes for 2 weeks. And Sarah, my lovely wife, whom you know, brought a radio to my bedside so that I could listen to that game. And then at the end of it, I texted you, and it was the first time I had opened my eyes in 2 weeks.
I mean, it felt to me it was the first time I'd opened my eyes in 36 years because I'd never seen Peru in a World Cup before. And let me just explain this because I think this is just so that people understand the level of emotion that I'm working with when I come to the World Cup. The first World Cup I remember was '86. Peru wasn't there. Peru made the '82 World Cup in Spain. But all I grew up hearing was rumors about Peru having been good. But in the current iteration, Peru was bad. Peru never, occasionally got close to qualifying, but never actually made it. In 2018, we made what's called in Spanish the repechaje, the playoff. And we had to play New Zealand. We went to Auckland, tied 0-0, came back to Lima. I flew to Lima, and this is a very small anecdote, but I was on the long list that year for the National Book Award, and I really hoped that so that's basically 10 books and they bring it down to 5. The 5 finalists have to go to the ceremony, and the ceremony was the weekend of the game. And so I was like, I really hope I'm not a finalist for the National Book Award. Like,
don't ruin my life by making me a finalist for the National Book Award.
So thank God I was long listed, but not short listed, so I was in the top 10, but not in the top 5. Huge relief because like that would have been awful. And I flew to Lima and I got a press pass because I'd convinced, the Peruvian Federation that I was the New Yorker's South American soccer correspondent.
Which you are in a way. They don't have another one.
They don't have another one. I've used this fake position before to get into games in Buenos Aires. I told David Remnick, the editor of The New Yorker, about this, and he found it very funny. But I've used this to get into games all over. And occasionally I do write about soccer for The New Yorker. But basically, I was in the stands. The vibe in Lima that day was so crazy and so tense and so excited. I bought this jersey with my friend Julio. He had a friend who was making replicas, and this was a replica of the 78 jersey. And the guy who brought it over to our house was like, it's so emotional. He was like basically crying in our arms as he was selling us this jersey. When the first, within minutes we'd hit the bar. We scored the first goal in the first half, put the game away in like the 78th minute. The New Zealand team was just completely awed by the fans who were singing an hour and a half before the game and sang for an hour and a half after. And it was so emotional because I went out and people were just crying in the streets. I walked from the Estadio Nacional, the national stadium, to Miraflores, and in the park there, people were just so happy, smashed, thrilled. There was a kind of police paddy wagon with its doors open, and there were fans on top of the paddy wagon, and the police van was going truck for arresting drunk people was covered in drunk people who were climbing all over it and chanting. And the policeman who was driving this van was like honking the horn, like da 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 da. Someone had climbed on top of one of these statues in these old kind of colonial parks in Lima, and some random martyr of the Republic is like on a horse, and they'd like put a jersey over him, this kind of thing. And I talked to my cousin the next day, and my cousin, like, we met in the I'm not sure now, and my memory, as we'll see in this podcast, is going. He went out to celebrate, came home, watched the game again, woke up the next day and watched the game again. One of my cousins told me who had only ever cried. He's not a crier. He cried at his wedding. He cried when he watched Diego Maradona's tribute game, like his farewell match. Right. And then he cried when Peru qualified for the World Cup. And those are like the 3 times that he's cried in his life, 2 of which are related to soccer. Yeah.
I mean, a lot of my tears have been shed over soccer, happy and sad tears. But yeah, for me, it was a club game. It was seeing AFC Wimbledon get promoted to the 3rd tier of English football at Wembley. This little club owned by its fans that had started out in the 9th division of English soccer and had been told by the powers that be that it shouldn't exist and wasn't in the wider interests of football in England, making it all the way up to to Wembley, playing in front of 60,000 people, having my dad there, thinking about how I was with my dad in 1994, and here I am in 2016 with my dad still, and not knowing how many more times I'm going to get to be with my dad looking at a football game together. And
did your dad ask about me?
Yeah. He was like, "How's your buddy Daniel that we went to that game with?" And I was crying even before the game because it's just such an accomplishment to be there, and it took so many thousands of people working together to make it possible for a fan-owned club to be there in the first place. But I remember looking at my dad right before the game started and saying, "In 2 hours, I'm going to feel so differently. I just don't know how." That your life is going to be very different, but you don't know how. And we scored in the first maybe like 60 minutes in. And after that, it was very tense, very, very tense until the 94th minute when we got a penalty. And the largest man ever to play professional football, Alarcón Fenwa, who probably weighed 270, 280 pounds, took the penalty, smashed it home. We were up 2-0. And then it was just the purest joy I've ever felt. Tears flow. I looked over at my dad. My dad was crying, even though he doesn't care about football. Like, everyone in the stadium was crying. Everyone was singing together. It just felt like I was in some space where all hope gets rewarded, and you don't get that very often. So that's one that I hold on to. I treasure. I think about it whenever I'm sad, whenever something feels impossible. I think about that day and think about how there are more days like that coming one way or another.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. We should take a quick break and come back and talk about the the World Cup. Okay, so we're back on the away end. I'm Daniel Alarcón.
I'm John Green. Sorry, I didn't realize we're still doing that bit.
I think we should, at least, so people know who we are. I don't think we need to say much about the absurd spectacle of the draw itself, but I do want to talk about the teams.
Well, I felt bad for Scotland getting stuck in the same group as Brazil and Morocco. That's going to be pretty rough, although I still think they could actually go through. I was happy for the United States. If the United States can't beat Paraguay and Australia, it doesn't deserve to move forward in the World Cup. You actually texted me this, and so it feels like your observation. But my first observation was that I think Germany might be in trouble. I could see Germany finishing third or fourth in its group because I think Ecuador is a really kind of perennially underrated team. I think they're really, really well organized and just the kind of team you don't want to play. And they had a really good qualifying run. And then the last thing I'd say is that I always have a little bit of a soft spot for a first-time World Cup entrant. And I don't hate the situation that Cape Verde is in.
Yeah. Absolutely.
I think they could beat Saudi Arabia and maybe make their way into one of those third place knockout round spots.
Yes. Okay. So that I agree with all of that. I think the Group E thing, Ivory Coast is no pushover. Ecuador, I think, is going to surprise a lot of people. They have so many good players, and they really were super steady in South American qualifying. Curacao is probably just happy to be there. I would be. I mean, it's, I think, the smallest country ever to make the World Cup, and so it's a huge accomplishment.
Yeah, it's like the size of an Indianapolis suburb.
Yeah.
It's not even the size of Indianapolis.
That's how most Curaçaoans describe themselves, actually. Like,
I know. It's my experience as well. We should add that I'm from Indianapolis.
Yes, Curacao, the Indianapolis suburb
context
of the Caribbean, yes. Okay, so I'm interested in your take on the U.S. because I mean, first of all, we should mention that there's still four countries playing for that last spot in Group D with the United States. And I think that changes things quite a bit. I mean, I'm guessing it's going to be Turkey.
It'll probably be Turkey, but if it isn't Turkey, it's a much easier group.
Yeah, for sure. If it's Turkey, that's a super difficult group. But here's the thing. 48 teams, 32 of them go to the next round. Is that correct?
That's right.
So that means that the top two in each group, and then the third place teams.
All the best third place teams, which will probably be third place teams that have won at least one game.
At least one game,
3 points.
A friend of mine made a joke that he said that the new World Cup rule was that all the teams advance.
Everybody qualifies, and then everybody advances to the knockout rounds.
Yeah.
Well, actually, we should talk about that, Daniel, because we both have a belief about this, that the World Cup, instead of being too big, is in fact too small.
Well, I say that, somewhat in jest, but I think that a World Cup that was the size of the United Nations would be, interesting. I mean, I think, okay, here's the thing. I don't agree. I don't like the best third place team thing.
I don't either. It's because it creates all kinds of situations where, like, Scotland potentially will qualify because they beat Haiti, even though they're going to probably get absolutely slammed by Brazil and Morocco.
Exactly. I find those permutations become like sort of really weird math. Like when you're, trying to watching like Steve Kornacki on election night. Wondering if he gets this many votes, can he still pull out Florida? Like that kind of stuff.
Right.
And it always, like, I don't like when math interferes with joy. So, I find it frustrating. I often feel like it rewards conservatism, and like not going for the win because you want to get that 1 point as opposed to getting the 3 points you need. So I find that frustrating. But so a 64 team World Cup where the top 30, the top two in each group go ahead.
Yeah.
would probably be better for me.
It's just enough World Cup. It's more World Cup, but it's not an infinite amount of World Cup.
Yeah. Maybe Peru could
that
make
way
it.
You have
if
64 games to watch, and then Peru would definitely make it.
Probably. I'm not going to say definitely, but I would say probably.
It's currently Peru's best path.
It is our best path.
Is for FIFA to make a last-second amendment to the number of teams that qualify for the World Cup.
I mean, as it is, I still think that Latin America or South America, I'm sorry, gets 6.5 spots. So that basically, like Bolivia has the chance to make the World Cup. The teams that were eliminated basically were Peru and Chile.
Which was a surprise. Chile was a surprise to me.
It wasn't a surprise to me, and it's a great consolation to many Peruvians that if we didn't make it, at least Chile didn't make it, so that we can feel a little bit better about ourselves, or at least have misery loves company situation.
But we were going to talk about the USA.
Yeah, and I guess I'm gonna. It dovetails with this question that I was going to ask, which of the North American host teams do you think will go farthest?
So I think the team that's going to surprise people is Canada. I think Mexico has a pretty straightforward group, but I think Mexico's been underperforming for years, and I don't see a lot of indications that they're turning it around. I think Canada could really surprise people. I think they're well coached. I think they have good players. I could see them getting to the round of 16 a little easier than I could necessarily see the USA. I mean, the USA is a better, has better players on average, I think. Like if you line them up 11 versus 11, I would favor the US on talent, but I wouldn't necessarily favor the US on coaching and strategy. And so I think that Canada could go further in the tournament than the US does. What do you think?
I think that's a bold take. I mean, look.
Well, that's Daniel. Have you not watched all these podcasts? You've got to have a bold take. You think Stephen A. Smith got where he got by being neutral?
You mean future president Stephen A. Smith?
Yeah,
look, my
exactly
bold take then is that Colombia's going to win it all. As long as we're speaking nonsense.
You think the U.S. will go further than Canada?
Yeah, I mean, quietly. Look, I think first of all, I'm not as convinced the quality of Jesse Marsch as a coach, and I say that as someone who, like I mentioned, I spent many a weekend afternoon at Red Bull Arena watching Jesse Marsch's teams.
Right.
And so I mean, I will say this: like I remember seeing Tyler Adams at age 17 bossing the midfield and I remember thinking that guy's like already the best player on the pitch. And so I've liked, it wasn't all bad at the Red Bull Arena. But Jesse Marsch had a tendency to run his teams into the ground, and then they would just fizzle out in the playoffs. His teams were hard workers. But I remember the comment about when Jesse Marsch was at Leeds that he had Rafinha on long throw-ins, and then Rafinha moves to Barcelona and becomes like a Ballon d'Or candidate. I mean,
right.
So I'm not sure that Jesse Marsch, that I hold him in the same esteem that you hold him in, but they have some great players, no doubt, and they could surprise us. But I think the U.S. is a more solid team. Player for player, like you said, I think they have quality, and
I just don't want to hope, Daniel. I don't want to hope.
Yeah, I hear you.
It's also the hope that saves you, and you don't know which is going to happen. Is the problem with hope?
I remember once looking for ticket prices from New York to Baku to watch Arsenal in a Europa League final, and then deciding that no, I'm not going to spend that money to go to Baku for that. And then Arsenal got absolutely stomped by Chelsea.
You would have been in Baku.
Imagine, it's one thing to be in your living room upset because your team lost the soccer game, and then but being in Baku and having spent however many thousands of dollars to get there.
I saw Liverpool lose a Champions League final in Paris. I remember the feeling.
Yes, but you're in Paris.
That's true. It wasn't that bad.
No disrespect to Baku. But,
yeah. I did get to spend a weekend in Paris with friends, which isn't the worst outcome.
Yeah. Okay.
Your hot take is that Colombia is going to win the World Cup. My hot take is that Canada is going to make the last 16. I feel much better about my hot take.
Well, I mean, that's that.
That's the thing about hot takes.
That's the thing about hot takes. Yeah, that you just gotta. I mean, look, I think everyone here is looking forward to Colombia, Portugal. I think that's going to be a great game.
Yeah.
And I think Colombia, Uzbekistan is an absolute, black box. No one knows what Uzbekistan will bring to the table. I don't know. No one knows what's going to happen there. And then there's still three more teams vying for the last spot. Jamaica, DR Congo, and is that New Caledonia? I'm not sure. But anyway, I think DR Congo is probably the strongest team there. And, I think AFCON is the hardest, the hardest confederation to get out of, to get into the World Cup. And I think,
sure.
and I mentioned this because the other argument for making the World Cup bigger is not so that Peru can make it, but it's just the democratization of the game. I mean,
yeah,
it's so it is pretty unfair how few spots there are for African teams compared to European teams. I realize that European teams are incredibly strong and they're excellent. And they have footballing pedigree and history, and it would be bizarre for Italy not to make it for another World Cup. But African teams have every right to come to the party too, So that's my other.
Yeah,
my
and
other
not only that, part of the way you get pedigree, part of the way you get that experience is by being at the World Cup, right? So like France has been at the World Cup, I think, since 1930. England was always invited to the World Cup, but declined the invitation, but has always been part of the World Cup. Like Italy, except for the couple times when they didn't qualify, always a World Cup team. Part of how you get there is by being there. And so I think that more spots for African teams would be great. I also think more spots for South American teams would be great because there is I would worry about a Peru or a Chile if they were in my group. And in a way, I frankly wouldn't worry about Curacao.
So we mentioned Curacao, we've mentioned Uzbekistan. Cape Verde is the other debutante this year. I mean, until at least we finish the elimination, the last 6 teams that are joining. Do you have a sense of which one might do the best?
I'm interested in how Uzbekistan does, but I think they're going to be in a really difficult group. I think Cape Verde could beat Saudi Arabia, and if they do, they could qualify. They could get out of it. Isn't it Jordan's first time as well?
I'll have to check that. But I will say, since you mentioned Cape Verde, in Group H, we have Spain, Cape Verde.
Jordan is as well. Jordan is as well.
I don't know much about the Jordanian team, but I imagine they're not bad. Iraq could still join the party too.
Get out of that group. Yep.
Yeah. Okay, but I do want to say this about Spain, Cape Verde, Saudi Arabia, and Uruguay. 2 things. Well, one, Saudi Arabia we know beat Argentina last time around. Yeah. They were the only team to do so.
Only team to beat them.
Only team to beat them. But also Uruguay, that doesn't mean they're a particularly strong team because they didn't show much the rest of the tournament. Uruguay's somewhat in crisis, not just because the U.S. beat them in a friendly in the last international break, but also just because Marcelo Bielsa, there's the sense that he's doesn't have control of the team, that the players haven't bought into his system, and that they made the World Cup but didn't really inspire much confidence. I watched part of Cape Verde's campaign because I have a close friend who's Cape Verdean, and she had me rooting for the team, and the jersey's beautiful. And it's not necessarily pretty, but it's effective. And I think that they could surprise some people. So we'll see.
Yeah, I think it'll be interesting to see how Uzbekistan does because I've seen very little of them. I saw a couple of Jordan's games because Jordan sometimes play against Lebanon, and one of the Lebanese players plays for AFC Wimbledon. But I haven't seen Uzbekistan play at all, so it'll be fun to watch them. Is there a game, Daniel, that you think will be the worst game of the 2026 World Cup?
My God, the worst game.
Because I'm going to watch all of them, so I want you to prepare me.
Yeah. That's a really tough one because, okay, I mean, Paraguay is not known for its, beautiful, fluid attacking football.
Neither is the United States of America.
And neither is Australia, right?
No.
So I could see that one being a real dreary match. I'm very curious about Haiti, Scotland.
Yeah.
Because in that group, that's the game. If you're the Haitian team or if you're the Scottish team, you're basically thinking, okay, Brazil's going to, absolutely crush us. Morocco will beat us. And that's the game where we can get the 3 points. So neither team is going to want. Yeah, neither team is going to want to go for the draw there because the draw won't suit them. So they need the 3 points. So that game could be.
I think that could be an explosive game. I think that could be a really fun game.
Yeah,
I think Qatar Switzerland could be pretty dull. I've never liked the way Switzerland set up, even though I admire their success in the World Cup. I've never particularly appreciated the beauty of their play, and I feel similarly about Qatar. Very function over form.
I have a soft spot for Switzerland just because of Granit Xhaka.
I know you love Granit Xhaka. He's a lovely man. He seems like a lovely man.
Yeah. Also, his narrative arc at Arsenal was really something to behold.
He was hated for a while.
He was hated. He almost left and came back, and
then he became captain.
Yeah, and then he came back to the Emirates. He was captain. He was stripped of the captaincy, and then he didn't become captain again, but he wore the armband again in situations where Odegaard wasn't playing or something. But yeah, no, I think he's shown himself to be a man of real character and a player of great resilience, and I have great admiration for him for that reason, because it would have been really easy to give up. Anyway, this is other thing that people should know. John, of course, is an AFC Wimbledon fan, and you're a Liverpool fan who also writes books, and I'm an Arsenal fan. I have other affiliations, but none quite as strong as Arsenal. How did you become a Liverpool fan, by the way?
And you also write books.
I do, yeah.
So when I was 12, I was on my middle school soccer team, and there was only one of us who was any good. His name was James, and he was from England. And James told us that in England, the games were attended by tens of thousands of people who would sing and dance, and that it was just an environment we couldn't even imagine in middle school, that it was nothing like American sports, that it was way better, and that there was only one really great team in England, and that team was called Liverpool Football Club. So we were all Liverpool fans. I suspect if you go back to that middle school soccer team, they're all still Liverpool fans, because why wouldn't you be?
Yeah. Well.
There's only one truly great team in England, Daniel.
Well, I'll tell you the dumb story about how I became an Arsenal fan. I mean, for a long time, as you know, and for our younger listeners and viewers, this will sound like, the Stone Ages, but you couldn't really easily watch European soccer or Latin American soccer or anything,
Right.
So when it started to become available to me, or I wasn't the kind who was going to, bars to watch games at 7 a.m, I started watching clips on YouTube, and there was a thing for a while called FootyTube that was like YouTube just for soccer highlights, that someone put me onto, and I would just watch the games and catch up to stuff. And I really liked the Premier League. I liked it a lot. But I was looking for a team to support, and I didn't want to support one of the teams that always won, because that seems like terrible. Again, normal people like underdogs.
So you picked the most underdog team of all with only 17 overall titles.
Well, I mean, again, and as an American fan who brings a certain whimsical, ahistorical view to the game, I liked red and white because I'm Peruvian. I liked Arsene Wenger because he reminded me of a college professor I liked. And I liked Cesc Fabregas because he was he was just a wonderful player. And then at a Christmas party for my soccer team in Oakland, which is called Left Wing Football Club, and at Left Wing Football Club, we had a sort of white elephant Christmas party, and someone my friend Federico actually got the present that he got was an Arsenal jersey, but Federico's like one of my only tall friends, basically. And it didn't fit him, but it fit me. And so he gave me this long sleeve Arsenal jersey that was like clearly had been bought at a thrift store and was like, almost threadbare. But that was it. I was like, okay, well, it's red and white. Arsene Wenger feels like a avuncular professor, Cesc Fabregas, and now I have a jersey, so I guess I'm an Arsenal fan. And the amount of time, emotion, and worry that decision has caused me since that day, that Christmas, has been, it's just astounding how much of my time I spend worrying about these players and these games and these people that I'll never meet. It's madness. It's not logical.
It is a form of madness. My wife said to me a few years ago, I got particularly frustrated after a Liverpool loss, and Sarah said, "You just can't have your overall well-being determined by the exploits of 11, 24-year-olds who live 5,000 miles away from you." And I was like, I mean, I agree with you in principle. You're right. It's not that you're wrong. It's just that I can't help it.
Did you say it's not just 11? There's also the bench and the coaches.
Oh God. Just so you know, Sarah, there's also like a coach who I care about a lot.
Well, I mean, I had, this is similar. And Sarah's absolutely right, of course. I think I'm and it's not just because Arsenal's better this year, but I have gotten better at sort of compartmentalizing.
Yeah, I no longer let it ruin a weekend. And I do often say after AFC Wimbledon loses or Liverpool loses, I'll say it's a good thing I no longer get emotionally invested in negative football outcomes.
That's good. That's good.
And I just say that to myself, even though it's not true. And then it becomes true by virtue of saying it enough.
Yeah, right. Well, I remember going to the doctor once, and my an American doctor, and I told him, when I play soccer, my knee hurts, and I sort of showed him where it hurt. And he said, well, then you shouldn't play soccer. And I was like, man, you don't get it, man. I change doctors immediately.
You're trying to take away the only thing I like about being alive.
Well, I remember we used to play in Bushrod Park in Oakland every afternoon back when I was a young writer with no responsibilities. The old guys that would play, I just admired them so much. There was this Ethiopian dude who was quite older than I'm 48 now. He must have been, late 50s, early 60s. He never moved from, like a 10 square foot area on the pitch. It never took more than 3 touches. He would get the ball, kill it dead, and make the pass. And I just remember thinking like, man, I want to be like that guy. I want to be able to keep playing and sort of still, not do what I do, it's not show offy. It's just being part of that collective on the pitch of trying to do something, even adding one pass to a nice team move is enough, Anyway, yes, you were saying?
Are you still there? Are you able to still play?
I hurt myself in June in Lima. I have played with my cousins. Every time I go, and we play, now we're old enough that we play adults versus kids. So it's a team of 7 cousins against a team of 7 kids. And my oldest son, Leon, was in Lima. So it was like Leon was on the team, and we played 2 weekends in a row, and I injured my Achilles, and I knew I was injured the first Sunday. And we won, and I knew there was no chance I couldn't play the next Sunday. So I played again the next Sunday. And then I haven't been able to play since. So I'm in recovery now, but I'll be back. I'll be back. Just in time for the expanded World Cup. Yeah.
It's 2030. You'll be there. I have a doctor story for you. After my daughter was born, I went to get a vasectomy, and I noticed on the wall of the vasectomy doctor a diploma from the University of Manchester. And I said, did you go to the University of Manchester? He said, I did. I said, do you like football? He said, I do. I said, who's your team? He said, Manchester United. And I got a vasectomy from someone else.
That's great. That's absolutely great. I mean, probably smart. Probably the right choice.
Yeah, it's not a risk worth taking. It would be one thing if we were talking about like a mole removal or something, but we're talking about something sensitive. So I wasn't having that done.
years ago, I was traveling in the Peruvian jungle, and we were in this little town, and they had all the bulls because it was a small. They had a few cows and they had bulls whose job was to impregnate all the cows, and all the bulls had names of Argentine goal scorers. So like strikers, because their job was to score, you know? So I just remember there was one giant bull and this guy was showing me around. He's like, and this is Martin Palermo. And this is Batistuta. It was great. So anyway, no Mancunian vasectomies for those bulls.
All right, let's take a break. We'll be back in a minute. All right, we're back. Daniel, are you planning to attend any actual games at this 2026 World Cup, or is FIFA too odious for you to give them your money?
The latter. First of all, the games are too expensive. I mean, I think I could have used my New Yorker South American soccer correspondent tack to get in. But first of all, if I go to the game and can't be with the people I love, but I have to be in a press box with a bunch of dorks, I don't want to do that.
Not as fun.
No. And second of all, like
Daniel Alarcón coming out hard against the press.
Yeah, the fake news press. It's a bunch of dorks. No, I say that lovingly as a member of the press. But also, I want to be in a soccer mad country when the World Cup is happening. And I happen to be living in one right now. So I think I'll stay here. I do want to watch a Cape Verde game with my friend who's from Cape Verde, with her family and people who are mostly in the Boston area. One thing I do love about being, having been lived World Cups in different American cities in New York or in the Bay Area, you can always sort of like watch the Korea game with the Koreans, and watch the Egyptian game with the Egyptians, and that's pretty special. I don't think we're gonna get that here in Colombia, but we will get the Colombian experience of watching a Colombian game in Colombia will be really incredible. I watched the Morocco game in Morocco once. Morocco-Sweden in the 98 World Cup, 1-1. And it was one of the most intense experiences of my life. I think I, got secondhand smoke inhalation, nearly passed out from all the stressed out Moroccan men smoking around me in this closed cafe. But it was, I think that's pretty incredible. And that's why I want to be there. And also, man, FIFA's the worst, just the absolute worst. And they don't deserve to be running the most beautiful, global sporting spectacle. But that's the world we live in.
They are and they don't. And yet I am still going to go to a game, and I have mixed feelings about it, but I can't miss the opportunity to take my dad to a football game and go there with my friends and have that feeling that I had in 1994, apparently without you, that is such a special feeling for me. And so I'm torn between, I don't want to give these people my money, and I do want to share this thing with my dad. And in the end, that wins.
Yeah, that's fair.
For me.
That's fair. I mean, I don't hold it against you at all.
Yeah.
Speaking of fathers, I don't know if I ever told you this, John, but my dad's first job as a kid growing up in Arequipa, Peru, was as a soccer announcer.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, so he would go to the games. The club team there is called Melgar, and my grandfather was a member of the club, and he would go with my dad and my dad, my uncles to the game every Sunday or Saturday. And my dad was drawn to the game, of course, but also really loved the announcers and would sort of like hang out by the booth as the announcers were calling the game for the radio. And he just loved it. He loved the wordplay. He loved the drama, the narrative tension. He loved it all. And he would copy them in the sense that for the little neighborhood games where the kids in his neighborhood would play, he wasn't a very good athlete. He would go out with the microphone and a little speaker they would plug into the lamp, and then he would narrate the local soccer games that his friends were playing in the neighborhood. And he got really good at it. He got so good at it that he tells me that on Sunday afternoon dinners or Sunday afternoon, after lunch, there was no TV. And the entertainment was often my dad. They'd be like, Renatito, narrate a goal for us. And that was how people lived soccer back then, because if you didn't see it in the stadium, you didn't see it on TV, but people would follow the games on the radio. So people were used to sort of creating the film in their heads that accompanied the words that were being said. And my dad got very good at it. So he would always narrate a goal, which was Peru's goal against Brazil in 1950 something Copa America. He can still do it, by the way. He's in his 80s and he can still narrate that goal. And he got so good at it that, and he hung out around the booth so much that eventually when the announcer got a job in Lima, the kind of head announcer, they hired my dad. He was like 16. Wow. And he became the voice of Melgar from the stadium in Arequipa. And so it's funny because when I've watched the games, and this, more when I was younger, but he would always, he would talk a lot about the soccer, obviously, but he would also talk about the announcers. He had criticisms of the announcers. He's like, because narrating for radio is different from narrating for TV. Narrating for radio, you really have to be much more precise. And for TV, the images are doing a lot of the work, so you don't have to really sort of do the play-by-play of what's going on,
Right. You don't have to say where the ball is. You don't have to imply with your voice the level of danger as much as you do when you're on the radio.
Yeah.
And you can often you'll find TV announcers just saying who has the ball. They'll be like, Lucas Paqueta, pause, then the next guy, pause, then the next guy. It is a very different skill than narrating for the radio.
Yeah. Maybe if your dad's going to come on, maybe we should bring my dad on also to narrate a goal.
We should have him narrate that goal.
Yeah. It's a good one.
So we're going to end every episode of The Away End with a story about the World Cup or our particular love of football. And Daniel's provided us with a beautiful first story. So thank you very much. I really appreciate that.
Thank you. Now we have to get to the important bit.
Something has to be at stake in this podcast, and that is going to be, we haven't decided yet, but we are going to each do a World Cup bracket, like they do for March Madness, Daniel. And whoever gets more of the teams correct as we go, I think maybe we'll have to work out the exact mechanics of it.
Yeah, no, there needs to be some science to this, but for sure, yeah.
There needs to be science where maybe if you get a finalist that's weighted more than 1 point. But at any rate, we'll figure it out. I've got a strategy. And whoever wins the bracket will win the bet. And then the winner of the bet will get something wonderful.
Yes.
That we haven't determined.
I was thinking about that really poor young man who's been growing his hair out until Manchester United wins 5 games in a row.
Oh, that poor guy.
That poor guy is really, he's not going to be able to, get in and out of the door of his home by the time, that this happens.
We should note, by the way, while we're talking about hair, that we are a couple of 48-year-olds with exceptional heads of hair. I mean, you have a truly exceptional head of hair. You don't have a gray hair on your head. But we both have, as hair goes, relatively good heads of hair for our age.
Yeah, that's true. And I'm currently growing my hair back out. I cut it short earlier this year. So you will be able to watch that progress as the tournament nears. But I don't think that the stakes should be hair related necessarily. Like, I'm not going to volunteer to shave my head if you win. Yeah.
Yeah, I think my spouse would prefer if my hair decisions were made largely between me and my barber.
Good. Same. Okay, I promise to keep thinking. I think that we're going to be posting this episode and sort of clips from this episode. And of course, if you have ideas,
leave them in comments. Send us messages on Instagram or Threads or wherever you can find us.
Yes.
Daniel, where can people find you on the internet?
I am theoretically on Instagram, Daniel G. Alarcón. I don't post much, but I'm there.
Same.
I miss Twitter.
I miss being with you on Twitter and talking to you. I don't miss Twitter. I miss talking about soccer with people who loved soccer with me. I don't miss Twitter. I don't miss there's something wrong with the structure of the social internet that we're not going to get to the bottom of in this soccer podcast, but
Fair
that
enough.
is very serious, I think.
Yes. Yeah, I agree. And maybe we should talk about that. This has been a really fun first episode of The Away End. Thanks so much for doing this. I guess we'll be back next week. Thanks to Kurt, our producer, and Sean, who will be regaling us with his knowledge of the sport throughout the season as we approach the World Cup. Anything else you want to add, John?
No, thanks for listening, and thanks for being here with us.
Yeah, thanks. We'll see you next week on The Away End.